got a good show racked up. We've got a guest who's a personal friend of mine. His name's Vinny Tafuro, and he has a website called corporateempathy.com.
Yes, corporateempathy.com.
And he is all about corporations starting to act like grown-ups.
Well, to act civilized and to act like
with a conscience,
with
right?
a conscience.
Like,
so the same. He
back.
wants to hold corporations to the same standard that you would hold human beings. No, human beings.
That's
and it's saying.
Isn't that funny that this is like a novel idea?
Yeah, like you know, and because what is a corporation other than a group of human beings on a business venture together?
Correct.
And so his whole thing is, you know, if a human being acted the way a corporation did, we would call them sociopaths. And they wouldn't have any friends. Nobody would hang out with them. And they would alienate everybody in their life. And we need to hold corporations to that same standard. Actually, a lot of great stories in the news. Unfortunately, corporations give us no shortage of sociopathic behavior.
It's so true.
So I can go over with him a few of the stories that were in the recent news. So, yeah, we're going to have him on at 6:30.
Brian, I want you to do your Brian Matroni with him. Like, say, this is nonsense. It's hogwash. No one's going to listen to you. You know, give him a little.
Oh, well, the problem is I agree with him.
Okay, well, that's good. Let's agree with him, but let's also tell him that he's going to be a pariah.
Yeah.
And he's going to, you know, this is not an easy task, because his whole thing, and, you know, it's smart in a lot of ways, is he wants to get kind of like, not a clothing line, but like T-shirt line and like some hats and basically get the word out, like, you know, in this kind of guerrilla marketing advertising campaign where people are like, you know, seeing these shirts and they're catchy and they're like, what is that? And that drives them to the site where they, you know, they're able to kind of, you know, embrace it and engage with him back and forth. And hopefully, I think he wants someday to have corporates go on, you know, corporations that say, you know what, we want to adhere ourselves to these guidelines and maybe pay a sponsorship fee or that kind of thing. But he's a neat guy, and he's really talented, and I'm happy to have him on. We'll have him on in the 6:30 segment. And you're back with the Diacos on Bubba Army Radio, radioio.com. I'm really, really happy to introduce Vinny Tafuro from corporateempathy.com, who's in the studio tonight with us. Hey, Vinny, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me. Definitely glad to finally be on the show here.
Absolutely. I know you've been listening to us. Thank you. And I'm sorry all in once. And thrilled to have you. I've known Vinny for quite a few years, and he's helped us out in different capacity. And I will say this: Vinny has always been a very empathetic and conscientious business owner, and you know, small businessman, and has always been, you know, happy to have the struggle and to own his own thing and do his own thing. And he's extremely well connected politically and extremely philanthropic and just one of these all-around good guys. So this doesn't surprise me for one bit. But I have to say this: I think you're up against some. I think you're going to have quite a bit of a climb to get, you know, the big ugly corporations to take a look at themselves and say, you know what, you're right. We've got to be better. We've got to be kinder and more humane.
So, Vinny, tell us about your idea for corporate empathy and how it came about and what you mean by it, because we try to paraphrase it, but we probably didn't do it the justice that you can.
Well, first off, thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate those words, and it's been great to have that friendship and work together.
All true, buddy. All true.
What I mean by that is kind of our slogan is holding companies to human standards, the same way we hold people to human standards, and there's no reason you can't do that. If you look at small business, it's warm and cuddly. It's owned by, you know, if it's Chichio's, it's owned by Jeff, and it's a great neighborhood, community-oriented, employee, team member-oriented business. You scale it up to large business, and all of a sudden it loses that friendliness. And so I started asking that question: how do we bring that back, or why is it missing? What happened to lose that?
Well, what have you found in your research?
What I found in that time is, as things scaled, we become further and further away from the employees on the floor or the vendors or your customers, and you lose that personal connection. And what's happened in corporate management and in business management is there hasn't been an emphasis on how to put that empathy back into it. And what we've looked at now is kind of where does that come from? Why are we teaching that, and how do we change it? One of the things that I've put out there is, it's entrepreneurs and customers that decide what the purpose of a business is, not an economist. And for too long, for the last 50 years, economists have been telling business graduates what the purpose of business is, when it's you and me, Jeff. We're the ones that run businesses. It's the customers that we serve that tell us if we're doing a good job or not.
On your level. But the problem for the Walmarts and the Costcos is that they have shareholders who don't give a fuck about the business, who don't give a fuck about the customer, who don't give a fuck about the community that they're within, because they're not within that community. And so when you have these large conglomerates and corporations and multinationals who may not even be in the country that they're hurting, it's a story I can mention from today that came out regarding Walmart and Costco and the essentially shrimp slaves that they have in Thailand from their largest provider and supplier of shrimp for their stores. So how do you overcome that when you may say, the owners and things like that, the economists don't drive it, but really they do when you get to the large corporate level?
Take Walmart for an example, and they've lost market share to Costco. If you take Walmart prior to 1992 when Sam Walton died, in the 80s, Walmart had a relatively good brand appeal, Buy American brand message, and they treated their employees rather well. They were some of the best treated employees when they went public. It was after Sam Walton died that subsequent CEOs and leadership in the company have kind of used employee benefits and salary to help make the profits look better. But have they actually improved the company long term? No, because now Walmart has a poor brand image. They have some of the lowest paid employees in the industry, and people take pot shots at them as much as they can. So long term, all of those CEOs have actually damaged the Walmart brand for shareholders on a long term basis.
And
They
They have.
have.
But they have some of the best YouTube videos.
Well, here's the thing, the people of Walmart.com.
People of Walmart.
Here's Walmart's new business model, though, and it's brilliant. Is you're the largest employer in America. You pay your employees a wage that they cannot afford to go and shop anywhere else but at Walmart. You offer them a pittance of a 10% discount if they shop with you. And so I have likened Walmart to a new form of indentured servitude, because the employees who work there cannot afford to shop anywhere else. All of their disposable income goes back into Walmart and their necessities. And so Walmart profits off the very people that they are hurting, which is their employees. But they have a built-in store base, which is this lower socioeconomic group, which under the new capitalism and the new world capitalism that we're under is not going away. I mean, we're going to have a larger and larger underclass, and that's where that's where their bread and butter is. Walmart used to try and get the middle class. They don't want them anymore. You guys can go to Target, okay? We don't need you. We can make enough money off the poor to be just fine. I mean, their numbers do hurt, and ultimately they have to answer to their shareholders that way. But Walmart's not going away. They're not going anywhere.
This is the beauty of capitalism and free markets, though. Is, all right, you're not going to change a Walmart right now. However, as more and more of the middle class and a larger and larger population start looking at these issues, that's going to influence the Walmarts. And you look at kind of a social entrepreneurship, and a lot of it is happening within food and nutrition. 6 years ago, and I know on an earlier show this afternoon on I.O., they were talking about Monsanto.
The worst.
6 years ago, though, if you mentioned Monsanto, it was this politically charged conversation. Now, people may disagree with you on whether GMOs are good or bad for you, but now it's a mainstream conversation, and that's in the last 5 or 6 years. So go out another 6 years from now, and we'll know more and more. So it's really about ideas bubbling up and becoming competitive. So when you go back to the Walmart side compared to Target or Costco or Publix, and there was an article last August in Forbes, it called Publix the Walmart killer, because this is the one state where Walmart is having a significant challenge coming up against Publix, because Publix is employee-owned. They have a lot of loyalty to their brand. They treat their employees well. And Walmart is now calling them out by name in commercials. They're in a battle that Walmart hasn't had to deal with.
Right.
Go out on that business model that Publix has or Costco has or Whole Foods, and like I said, different price points, but eventually somebody's going to fill that niche that Walmart has right now, and they're going to do it in a cost-effective manner that's profitable.
They will initially, But my point is, eventually they will. But eventually they will do that, and initially they will continue doing the things the way they were doing them. But eventually, that greed. I mean, Costco is right there with Walmart with this this vendor that they use, and they may not be aware that the vendor is using these Thai shrimpers as prisoners. I mean, the articles here. Workers were compelled to toil for years in Asia at no pay and under the threat of violence, and they're being used for the production of seafood sold at Walmart, Costco, and major British and European retailers, The Guardian reported Tuesday. So, Costco is like, it was the alternative to Walmart. We're going to be better. We're going to do that. They all eventually fall into that rut because at the end of the day, unless you have a private company like Publix that's owned by its employees and it's not, rampantly publicly traded, you lose that sense of ownership and loyalty. That's the inherent problem in our capitalistic corporate structure today. And how that's really the question is, you say, these alternatives will come up, but power and money oppress these ideas from coming up. Monsanto is doing everything under the. They've infiltrated the entire federal government. I mean, to a scale that would almost probably be criminal if it was investigated fully. Except the people who would investigate it are all tied to Monsanto.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. When you have the FDA being the former, person in charge at Monsanto, how are you ever going to get the change that you need? The head of the USDA and all this, and that's the problem. Is it just becomes this vicious cycle? I don't see how you can break it.
This back to that vendor side. It's all about distance. And I'll take Walmart and Publix as another example. On the employee side, Publix has Walmart beaten hands down on employee benefits and treatment.
Kills them.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Most recently, I don't know if you're familiar with the Immokalee tomato pickers in South Florida.
No. Oh, the city,
the Immokalee area, the tomato.
I didn't know
pickers,
that's how you pronounced it.
Yeah, it was. They get a penny per bushel or basket picked for tomatoes, and it was this worker labor wage issue. And McDonald's, Burger King, a whole bunch of large corporate companies, and including Walmart, have opted to pay that extra penny per bushel or basket. Publix is still holding out and not willing to cave on that, saying it's a vendor issue and not doing it. Now, what's interesting is companies picking and choosing which stakeholder they value more than another one. And this is where I look at it. It's not that they're all going to digress to doing the worst thing possible. I think they've already done that. And with the advent of social media, it's kind of even that playing field. There's enough people that care about any one individual stakeholder that eventually the shareholders and leadership of the company have to address each stakeholder as it gets attention pointed to it. Apple's having a similar thing right now with Chinese labor and different labor conditions in their factories. Up until now, everybody could be very happy to have their iPhone. It was designed in California and then made in China or assembled in China. Now that stuff's coming to light of worker conditions there. And as more and more things come to light and social media makes spreading those words and images and videos and stories more instant, companies aren't going to be able to cut those corners anymore.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And so the slogan that you have on shirts is being a sociopath is just not cool, right?
Yeah.
Here's the problem I see with this, though, and a potential problem for your movement is sociopathic behavior is the new normal. It's becoming the new normal with the age of Twitter and Facebook and look at me now and I want and I need and I'm going to show off. And we've gotten to this period in our national history where conspicuous consumption is back. We're back into the 80s. Greed is good, Gordon Gekko style. and if you don't have it, it's because you're not trying, you're not smart enough, and look, it's all about what you got and what you can flaunt and what you can show on. And people do it in different ways, but I think as our society is progressing, we're becoming more and more sociopathic and less in tune with behaviors that are normal and having human empathy and kindness and things. We think that empathy is hashtag bring back our girls and this hashtag activism I've done something. I made a difference doing this. You haven't done anything. You've shared your opinion with the world, but it hasn't really done anything. And so I think that there's a growing problem, and I think it's going to be harder for us to get people to latch on to the corporate empathy movement when our own human empathy movement, I think, needs a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm an optimist on that, and I look at social media as 10 years old, and it acts like a 10-year-old. You can have lolcats up the yin yang where people are just posting funny stuff. You can have trolling that is severe enough to cause teenagers to commit suicide. But you can have an earthquake or some sort of disaster happen in a remote part of the world, and the response from empathy is instantaneous. And like a 10-year-old, that's the maturity level. So if you look at radio in the 1930s, War of the Worlds, people killed themselves because they thought that was a real alien invasion. So take it out 100 years, and now we're talking on radio. Today, it's a serious medium. It's more mature. There's still some immature sides to it. But, but overall, I believe social media and that internet connectivity, we're a little drunk on it right now. It's all over the place. Everybody's got this new voice that they hadn't had before. In the coming years, it's got to get better, because if not, I don't want to imagine what worse is going to be.
Yeah, that's not.
I mean, if not, don't have children.
We've become so crass and so selfish and self-centered, and I think that's been the biggest effect of it. And when people do, it does raise consciousness of issues, and that ability is there. But the problem is, on a day-to-day basis, that's not what's happening. It takes a major catastrophic event to kind of channel that energy to a positive stream from either a negative or a very staticky, just background noise, to get it to actually have to tune it, so to speak, so that it has a clear, positive message. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for our society as we move forward. And I don't think we can hold the corporations accountable until we hold each other accountable to each other, to one another. And I think they're kind of one and the same. Once we start acting like humans again, then everybody's going to be like, well, this behavior is not normal. But these corporations, I mean, they're allowed to do it on a day-to-day basis. No, not one person is going to read this Walmart Costco article who is shopping there regularly and stop shopping there, even though they're using slave laborers for one of their vendors, and they're aware of it, and they've been aware of it. That's the issue. When, at what point do does that make a difference to somebody to say, well, you know what, I'm not just not going to buy shrimp from Walmart or Costco. I'm not going to buy anything from Walmart or Costco.
Well, if you think about that, you look at labor laws and the evolution of labor laws and consciousness. There was only 80 years ago, you had the same conditions here in the United States. And eventually, people stood up and stopped it and changed it. Now we have child labor laws, and we have things to protect that. And we still have underground slavery issues in our own country that are still unfixed and unchecked. So it's something that, now that the attention's been brought to it, think of us as looking at that country and going, okay, how do we now start addressing that? And maybe Walmart and Costco won't, and their customer demo is probably not going to make a decision not to buy there, but you're going to look at shareholders, and this is where the shareholder's been diluted into it's this mythical thing that wants the most amount of money. No, the shareholder is you and I and Jeff and Brian or Ryan, and it's the teachers of our country, the everybody in our country that has a retirement fund is a shareholder in a lot of these companies, and it gets diluted. And
that's the problem, is the dilution of that voice.
Of
I mean, the centralized voice is still the 30 to 70% shareholders that have the bulk of the power and the most to gain and lose. And then, like you said, with these corporations that have gotten so large that it doesn't matter. Like, this story doesn't matter. If I told you Chichio and Tony was using shrimp bought from slave labor, everybody, it would be a huge story in Tampa, and nobody would. The restaurant would be ruined.
Yes. Okay.
But because it's Walmart, it doesn't matter. They're above the reproach that would happen typically and normally would happen to something smaller.
Yeah. You've got to start small, though. You can't change Walmart as it stands right now. And I'll use an example of a rather large company, Live Nation. They have the amphitheaters around the country. Over the summer last year, their CEO announced that they would serve sustainably grown food bought within 100 miles of their facilities, and they would only buy certified humanely treated animals for their animal products. Where'd that decision come from? It came from the fact the CEO's wife and children eat like that at home, and their musicians that have been playing there have said, look, we like this.
Right.
And so they said, well, you know what? Our customers are probably going to like it too. They're not passing the cost on. And
well, $9 for a hot dog,
yeah,
you don't have to.
You don't have to. We're all the entertainment business. But the point is, though, is that decision came from a place of the person's family influencing those decisions. And this goes back to who teaches our business leaders, or what are we teaching them? And if every college of business in the United States is teaching greed is good and the shareholders the most important thing, well, that's what we're going to produce as MBAs. So I kind of put that responsibility back on the academic side to say, why don't we start teaching humanities and some empathy to our business executives, so that when we graduate them and they go into those leadership positions, they understand how to make a more cohesive, larger picture decision, rather than looking at how do we balance the numbers the easiest and cheapest way.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly with everything you're saying. I don't have as rosy of an outlook as you do, but that's what makes you you, and that's why you have this site and you're pushing this this corporate empathy theme. Now, you wrote a book.
Yes.
And can people purchase that book through your site?
Yeah, at corporateempathy.com. There's a link for the book, which is available on Amazon for Kindle or print on demand. And then we have a T-shirt and some buttons that are available now, and we really look to expand this to an entire apparel and merchandise line that kind of snarkily, sarcastically pokes fun at corporate America and says, you can do a better job, and even give some examples of how.
See, Vinny's going to sneak up on the corporations one shirt at a time, and a button. Just be like, "Cha-pow! What do you think of that, Walmart?" I like it.
Walmart won't blink, but there will be other companies that do. And you're right. There are vehicles and mechanisms for change and reasons to be positive and stay positive and to have a positive outlook on what's going on in the world. We'll see what happens. Hopefully we can have you on in 10 more years and we can talk about how you're well, first of all, we'd still be on, which would be a miracle in and of itself.
Exactly.
And then we could talk about how your movement has changed the world. What's your background?
My background is primarily marketing, website design, and programming, but like Jeff had said, I've been involved pretty heavily politically at the local level, where you're still pretty effective. National, not so much. And then I've been involved a lot in the nonprofit sector. So it's kind of given me this kind of looking into more than one silo and seeing how they interact and what the best way to affect different ones are.
Well, that's good to know, and we thank you for coming here. We thank you for your efforts. You can go to his website, corporateempathy.com. You can purchase the book. It's available on Amazon.
Let's tweet out a link for that.
Rick did. I'll retweet it. And Amazon, that's another interesting one. Is they're holding they're holding their vendors hostage now. They want they want complete and total market control. It's been very publicly.
That's fucked up.
Oh, they're not. You can't purchase the Lego Movie, pre-order the Lego Movie through Amazon.com right now. They have a war going on with Warner Brothers. They have a war going on. I think it's called Hatchet Books or something like that, which is a pretty large publisher. And Stephen Colbert actually ran a pretty funny segment on it on his show because his books are published by Hatchet Books. And so when he found out about it, I think that's the publisher's name. If I'm messing that up, if I'm hatcheting that, I'm sorry. But it's just another example of corporations wielding their power and saying, listen, it's not what's best for our consumers. It's not what's best for the greater good. It's what's best for our bottom line and what our vision is. And their vision is very rarely in line with what this world needs, which is love, love, love.
Yeah. But, earlier, I know before I was on, I was listening, and you said, corporations, and I look at this, all they are is a collection of people. And they represent what people are doing.
That's a good point.
As we look at trying to improve ourselves, that corporate structure will improve and what they do.
Let's hope so. Well, thank you very much for your time, Vinny. And again, corporateempathy.com, and there you have links to his Twitter and his Facebook. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be back in a few minutes. You're listening to the